Good evening, everybody. How's it going? It's me, Comic Crack. Do I have everything I need? Yes, I do, right there. How's it going? Wasn't around last weekend. No chat with Rasa again this weekend. Hopefully next weekend. Summertime is a bit harder. Things are going on. We've had some stuff happen around the funeral service yesterday. Sudden death of somebody that we worked with. Another person that we work with passed away just recently. It just seems like shit is popping off. Not sure what's going on. I hope everybody out there is okay. As my friend says to me all the time, don't die. Just don't. Just stick with us. Not a ton of stuff to talk about. I haven't read a lot of stuff. But the few things I did read, there was one absolute standout that I'm really looking forward to talking to you all about. And if you don't know it, hopefully it turns you on to it. Incredibly fun book. I enjoyed every second of it. I spent a few days reading it and kind of flipping through, and I flipped back and forth through it. So I'm very excited to talk about that one. As far as kind of what's going on out there in the world, Scott Connor, how the hell are you, man? It's been a long time. The Punisher is back. We all know what's going on out there. I've kind of disengaged with a lot of it. The kind of daily horrors that are happening, the bodies that are being kind of found in Rafah, and the hard line that the U.S. government has stated, and it's frustrating, and it just gets me thinking about all of the usual stuff and what kind of future is there for the kids, and talking to my daughter about speaking up and speaking her mind, especially if she starts to kind of raise in the ranks of whatever she ends up doing, whatever organization she's with, whatever workplace she's in. Once you start raising those ranks, like the importance of speaking your mind to that when you're at the table, you need to speak. And if you have a differing opinion than those at the table, you absolutely need to speak. You need to have your voice heard. Things need to change somehow. Brianna Joy Gray is still on my radar as one of my favorites to listen to. Like Norman Finkelstein, though, she does have a tendency to be a little long-winded when she's giving answers, and that can be a little frustrating sometimes. There were some fantastic discussions, as usual, with Robbie Suave over on The Hill, over on their show Rising. I can't remember exactly what they were talking about or how they got into it, but Robbie ended up saying something to the effect of, this is not a direct quote, something to the effect of, there's a lot of Canadians that would love our healthcare system. And I burst out laughing out loud because that's absolutely fucking nonsensical. There's often a misunderstanding, I think, with our healthcare system. There's always this conversation of long waits. Not saying that never happens. What I am saying, though, is that it's not as often as some people would like you to believe. Yes, there's going to be waits if you have surgery scheduled that isn't an emergency. For example, my mom just had one of her knees replaced. Part of it was on her. She took a long time to make the appointment. Getting used to the idea of having some major surgery is obviously scary for a lot of people, especially for those who haven't had a lot of surgery in their lives like she hasn't. There was quite a long waiting list for that. Could she still walk? Of course she could. Was she bedridden and screaming and howling in pain 24/7? Absolutely not. So due to that, there was a bit of a waiting list. When it comes to people that I've known who have had to undergo cancer treatment, you're in there right away. It's not like there's this big waiting list to kind of get in for stuff that's a lot more serious. Again, that's a very general statement. Of course, there's going to be isolated instances where they're going to be they're not going to be the norm. What we do face, though, is a shrinking healthcare system, especially here in our province and in our city. And that's been shrinking for a long time. People love to put off that shrinking and failing healthcare system on the Conservative Party. They have been in power for quite a while, but it's not like this issue that we had didn't start long before that. The NDP party has been in power here in the province before. They're currently in power here, talking about solving the issues and making our healthcare system, boosting it a little more. And I wish them luck, and I hope they have success. I just find that a lot of times when I hear this conversation, it's very much this is the solution. There's one answer, and that's going to fix things, let alone the fact that we've lost a lot of people in the healthcare system due to the pandemic. That burnt out a lot of people. There's a lot of mandatory overtime here within our healthcare system for the nurses that we do have. And that's burning out a lot of people. There's not a lot of people coming into into that kind of field, I guess, to fill those gaps. We have emergency rooms that have closed. Like a lot of cities, we have a huge addiction problem. We have poverty issues that are causing problems health-wise, all sorts of things that kind of cumulatively lead to a healthcare system that just can't keep up. And there's oftentimes just an answer that we're just going to do this. My favorite word in life. It's something that I talk about in film all the time, but it really kind of spreads to every area of life. If you hear someone say the word just, a gigantic red flag should be waving in your head. There's no just for anything. You're not just going to go there and do that. You're not just going to open a couple of more emergency rooms and the problem will be solved. It's a very complex, multifaceted issue, but I couldn't help but just burst out laughing at Robbie when he said that. The other thing I wanted to point you to with Brianna Joy Gray is a conversation that she had. It was a debate, loose quotes. There was some sort of convention, the Dissident Dialogues, I think is what it was called, I believe it took place in New York. And they're starting to release some footage from it. Brianna Joy Gray has already spoken about it. The Do Dissidents guys who had nothing to do with the convention, one of them attended it and he didn't have very much positive to say about it. The idea seems like a good one, having differing viewpoints and some stuff that's maybe controversial, having those topics discussed. Sure, go for it. Didn't seem to be the case in what I've heard about it and this clip that's come out of a debate, like I said, that Brianna Joy Gray is on, and a couple of other people. I apologize, I can't remember their names. I'm only about halfway through the discussion. Konstantin Kisin is the quote-unquote moderator of it, and in the half that I've seen so far, I've seen much better moderating in other fields. Is it an easy thing to do? For sure it isn't, especially when you're an individual like Konstantin Kisin from the Trigonometry channel, who's has very strong opinions on things. It's hard for him not to interject his own opinions, and it's clear which side of the debate he falls on, and he doesn't really hide that. I personally feel that he does a poor job of moderating in the half that I've seen. Haven't seen the whole thing. I'm not impressed with it. Apparently all that has spilled out onto social media and some bickering back and forth. I don't give two shits about that. I think that's silly. Hashing things out and fighting like children online, I think is just immature and fucking ridiculous. And I'm kind of disappointed that Brianna would get involved in some of that stuff. I will say she is getting a hard time for the things that was saying, for the fact that, as he states, that she wasn't answering any of the questions. And that's where it comes to some of my issues sometimes with these people like Brianna Joy Gray and Norman Finkelstein. They're incredibly intelligent people. They're incredibly well-researched. They're incredibly knowledgeable about the topics that they discuss. They do have a tendency to be very long-winded. I, as a spectator of a lot of debates and a lot of discussions, the one thing that frustrates me, no matter who it is getting asked a direct question and taking 5 minutes to answer that question. I know that questions aren't a simple yes or no. I understand that there is complexity that needs to be discussed. But at some point, you do have to answer the question. And I found that with Brianna, I was getting a little frustrated listening because she just wasn't really answering some of the questions that she was being asked. And it does become very difficult. You do end up losing your audience. and she does have a tendency to do that sometimes. When I first watched her Bad Faith YouTube channel, that was one of the things that turned me off early on, and I kind of had to come back around to it and kind of spend some time with listening to her talk. It really turned me off the amount of talking she was doing versus the guest. I didn't quite understand what was going on. When you have a guest, I feel like that guest should be doing most of the talking. Again, probably just me. But that said, though, I would encourage you to kind of go and check out her stuff, to listen to the Rising show on the Hill TV here on YouTube. It's interesting discussions. There's a lot of talk again about numbers, which you've heard my opinions on that already. And I mean, again, the one thing that I just kind of keep coming back to, and I know it's a reoccurring theme, and I know that I've said it multiple times, I'm just so sick and tired of kind of blanket terminology, blaming everything on DEI, blaming everything on woke culture, calling everybody a Nazi, all of these kind of things. Like it always comes down to the Trump is orange man bad kind of syndrome, where it's just like, man, you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. I'd much rather people stayed silent on subjects than throw around a lot of those words when they're kind of railing against whatever they're railing against. I'm so done with that language. I completely shut down at this point. Every once in a while, I'll make mention of it if somebody uses the words around me, but honestly, I'd much rather just shut the fuck up. If you have nothing to say about it, it's totally fine. You don't have to speak on every single topic, especially if you're going to kind of pare it down to nonsensical terms like that. I just don't feel like that's a discussion whatsoever. That shuts down any dialogue, and I'm tired of it. I'm very, very tired of it, and it happens, unfortunately, way too much. Music-wise, this week, a couple of weeks ago, I talked about a couple of things that I got from Hanson Records, Mr. Aaron Dilloway. Those tapes came, and they are fantastic. I don't think I know I showed the Bandcamp versions, but the actual cassettes arrived, and I'm so glad that I waited to listen to these albums. So this is Bootgar, Sounds of the Kathmandu Horror House. I don't know how much is field recording, how much is stuff that he has created and added to it. I don't know if it's, he claims that it's all recorded at the Kathmandu Fun Park in Kathmandu, Nepal 2023, recorded by Dilloway himself. I sometimes feel with some of these kind of field recordings that it's just a nice, it's a great idea, and it's something that then you can add to. But I'm not sure how much of that is happening there. And then the other thing I got was his At Wave Farm, I think is what that says on the side there. It's a live recording that Dilloway did when he was on tour, and it's fantastic. And again, both of these, the digital is just fine to listen to, but I'm very, very glad that I waited for the cassettes. Both of these, I think, work amazingly well in the cassette format on my wee little mono stereo here that crackles and pops, and the rewind button doesn't work so well, and sometimes the play button sticks. It's fantastic to listen to this kind of thing on that. I didn't bring him down, but there's a local record guy in town. He bought out the stock of a place called the Sound Exchange here downtown Winnipeg, near the University of Winnipeg on Portage Avenue. And he had a sale this weekend. He's been kind of blasting stuff out there. So originally, I think he had a $1 sale that my son and I went to, and it was very unorganized and difficult to kind of sort through things. This time it's more organized. It's still kind of random bins of stuff, and it's a $2 sale. And he's getting to the point where he's done a lot of sorting through the stock, and he's got a lot of higher priced items now. They're going to be coming out in September, I think is what he said. So I'm looking forward to that. I found some amazing records for $2 a piece. I found a Tiny Tim album for $2. I found a Mina Mazzini. Most importantly, I found a Mina Mazzini on vinyl it's an album from 1975. Listened to it yesterday. That's not my preferred era for Mina. I like her 60s stuff a lot more than any of the other eras that I've sort of dipped my toes into. That's just because I like that sound of the 60s. I'm not crazy about the 70s and 80s and 90s sounds of what she was doing. She's still a fine singer in those eras. I just don't really like the music. The 60s stuff is what I kind of gravitate to, but I've never seen a Mina Mazzini album in person, so I couldn't pass it up. And there's some good tracks. There's some really nice tracks on it. There's a few that are really not my taste, but I have a fucking Mina Mazzini album. So, and it also gives me hope that maybe there's other stuff that's maybe coming that he's going to come through. Cause it's one of those things. If you're going to have one thing by an artist, you probably have a couple of other things by that same artist. So I'm hoping that I see some more of her stuff. I'm hoping that maybe I strike it lucky and find some of that early stuff. I'd love to have her first full length. I think it's called Studio 66, maybe. I'd love to have that on vinyl at some point. And then I got another tape on its way to me. Crevure, I think is how you pronounce it. He's from France. He's a solo act. Sorry, this isn't one that's coming to me. This is one I bought digitally. Global Intifada. I'll show you the Bandcamp page, and then we'll talk comics. This one here, Share. So Grind War Records. I'm a big grindcore fan. We've talked about it here. I'm a big noise fan. I like kind of extreme. I've always liked extreme music. I think it honestly helps with my mood, and it always has helped with my mood. When things are so fucking angering around you, you got to have some sort of release. And this kind of music is a great release for me. Highly recommend this album. It's, as you can see, it's only 4 songs. The longest one is 1 minute and 9 seconds, 43 seconds, 55 seconds. It's a great kind of blast of, as they say here, DIY blackened grindcore from France. And the other one that I have, a Canadian band, and this is the tape that's on its way to me. A band I've never heard of called Balkan from Vancouver, British Columbia. Not All Prisons Have Bars. Holy fucking moly, is this a good goddamn album. This is like a real sludgy, heavy, doomy, crusty as shit album. It's unbelievable. I'm such a fan of this album, and I've listened to it multiple times digitally. It'll be another one that's going to sound killer in this shitty little stereo there. So if you're into any of that kind of heavier doom sludge kind of music, strongly recommended that you give this one a listen to. 3 songs. And I think by the looks of it, they still have cassettes available. The digital album is there as well, too. When you buy the cassette, you get the digital album, obviously, with it. So strongly recommend this one. Not All Prisons Have Bars. Really, really great. You all know how big of a fan I am of Godzilla -1. It's out on Netflix now. You can rent it digitally. My son and I rented it last night to watch because we don't have Netflix anymore, so we paid the $5.99 to rent it for 48 hours. The version we saw was the black and white Godzilla -1. So this is my 3rd time seeing this movie. It was just as good as each of those other times. It was actually, the black and white looked fantastic. I thought it worked really well with this film. It kind of puts it in that time a little more solidly. There's some shot choices and there's some editing choices that are very modern day. But I found for the most part, it sort of sucks you in that extra little step into putting you in that place of pre-original Godzilla movie. I think they did a really, really great job. And again, it was just nice to see it. Sorry, I'm really getting hit with asthma down here. I'm not sure why, what's down here. Sorry, I lost my train there. It was great to see it again in that format. It's just a hell of a story. It works really well in black and white. Still as good as I saw in the theater. We couldn't have it kind of at full volume. There's other people in the house. We had it fairly loud, but I found even with that, some of the soundtrack elements didn't work as well at home as they did in the theater, where you're really getting that low end and you're getting that unease. It's still one of the best soundtracks I think I've ever heard in my life. It's right up there for me. The album is on its way. It was bought for me for my birthday. It got delayed. It's now been shipped, so I'm hoping to get it in a couple of weeks. I can't wait to sit and put that on the turntable and listen to that again. I think it's a brilliant album. It uses kind of these very minimal kind of orchestration and these very unsettling chords and kind of sounds that are pinned against each other that don't quite work, and they really give a nice sense of unease. And the way that builds the very first piece that's at the beginning of the movie, as we're getting closer to Godzilla, kind of seeing him for the first time, that piece is one of my favorites. It's a hell of a thing. One of those things that this movie has no right to be this good when it's a basically a giant monster, a man in a giant monster suit kind of movie. The soundtrack has no business being this good because it's that same thing. It's just mind-blowing to me how they were able to turn this genre from a completely fantastic and fun genre into something that is so kind of hard-hitting where you just wouldn't expect it. It's such a good movie. You saw it, Scott Connor. I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad you dug it. I was very, very impressed with it. And again, like I've said in the past, I'm glad that they got an award, even though those awards don't mean shit to me. I'm glad that they got an award, because anything that's going to get people to throw more money at this creator and do whatever it is that you want, I think is better. I'm on board to see whatever he does next. I've started looking back to see what else he's done. There was another war movie that he's done that he did a few years earlier, I think. So I might try to hunt that one down to check that out. Anyway, that's it for that. What did I read this week? Some of this is from last week. We'll talk about the few things I read, and then I've got a couple of books that are new to me, that I had pre-ordered, that I'm very anxious to kind of dig into. I started reading, this is Batman Dark Age #3. I just started reading this. I'm only about halfway through, and then the stream time had started. I'm still really enjoying this series. This is great. Bruce Wayne is now back from the war, and he's, and as he says, everybody around him is surprised that he survives, that he has survived. So they've kind of come to terms with, well, the kid is going to be around. I guess we got to cut him in on the business. And we get a little bit more backstory. And one of the things that he's discovered is that, where's that page here? It didn't take me long to figure out why there were no records on Wayne Pharmaceuticals. It was because they were busy turning Wayne Enterprises into a drug cartel. They'd get people hooked on their painkillers, knowing that when their prescriptions ran out, people would turn to the streets, at which point the False Face Society took over, selling the same drugs at a 1,200% markup. When they drained all the money they can out of these people, leaving them a husk of their former selves, they became Gotham's problem, and problems are good for business. Fantastic page. It's always nice to see a little bit of that kind of thing in some of these books where I don't expect it, and I don't think that it has to have this kind of extra level, this kind of real world level into comics. It's nice when it happens. I don't think it's mandatory personally for some of this stuff. I'm fine with pure escapism. It is nice, though, to have those moments where it touches on things that I think we can all relate to in some form or another. So such a good book. Still really digging it. I think there's only 6 issues of it. When last we spoke, I was talking about that book, and Mr. Sleepy Reader Damien said, did you ever pick up Superman Space Age? My answer was no. So I went and found a copy of issue number 1 and read this. I think this was this only 2 or 3 issues, I think. I do plan to go back and get the next one. I loved the art in this. I wasn't as blown away by this story. I found this one to be really New Frontier. It had a lot of kind of New Frontier vibes to it. And if I want to read New Frontier, I'll just read New Frontier. I think that also plays into the fact that I'm just not the biggest Superman fan. I don't have a strong opinion against him. I'm just not a huge fan. I have read some Superman stuff that I absolutely adore, but I'm not the biggest fan of the character. And this story just didn't really do much for me. It was nice. It was well written. The art is still gorgeous. I love Allred's stuff. It feels like he's one of those artists that the older he gets, he's just going to continue blowing us away with how his art will develop even from this point. You know, he's still very much Allred, but there are some things that you can see that are changing within his style. And I love it. I absolutely love it. So like I said, I will for sure be getting the rest of this series. I do want to see where this ends up, but this issue didn't blow me away. It didn't blow me away kind of like the Batman Dark Age did, but still not a horrible read. Oh boy. Hello, Bubby. Love that book. Someone said that the same, you're talking Dark Age. Someone said that the same team is also going to do a Wonder Woman book. I don't know if that's true or not, but would love to see it. I would love to see it. It kind of reminds me of what McKeever did back in the day. He did a book of a Superman book. He did a Batman book, which is Nosferatu. Was the Superman Metropolis? Probably was Metropolis. And then he did a Wonder Woman book. And I'm blanking on what the Wonder Woman, Blue Amazon or something like that. That would be fantastic as a trilogy to see this as a same kind of trilogy of those characters. So I hope that is true. Man, oh man, did this ever take me back? I'm so glad. I'm so surprised, and I'm so glad that I decided to pick up a random issue of Captain Carrot. I can't remember if this was in a 50-cent bin or if it was a $1 bin. Either way, it is issue number 14. This took me back like instantly. I was an enormous Captain Carrot fan when I was early days of reading comics. I really loved this stuff. I was a sucker for the what the hell do you call it? Anthropomorphic comics, the ripoffs of kind of the Ninja Turtles. This was so great to read again. Scott Shaw's art is just so fun. The characters, it is wordy as hell. I will admit that maybe I didn't read every single word on every single page, but boy, oh boy, was this a blast. I think I'll be keeping my eyes out for more Captain Carrot in those 50-cent bins, because this was really just great to sit and read. Even seeing like these old ads, you know, like all of us old fuckers say every time we read these books, all of the stuff that's contained in one of these issues, it brings you back. You know, the back cover of Atari 2600, right? Or what year? Yeah, 1982. God damn, dude. 9 years old. A comic crack that was 9 years old. I don't know if I was reading this in 1982. I don't have, my memory isn't that solid on exactly when I was reading Captain Carrot or when I was exposed to it. I suspect it wasn't 1982, but that said, though, it was when I was still much younger than I currently am. So this was a blast. Not much to say about it. It is what it is. You're not getting any, and I'm sure that if you were really familiar with the the JLA, or as they're called here, Just a Lot of Animals. Maybe there would be some things in here that would resonate a little stronger with you. I'm not a huge reader of JLA comics. I don't know that history very well. So I'm sure there's stuff in here, inside jokes that are over my head. But from the floating head cover, it's just an absolute blast. It was a hell of a lot of fun, that book, man. It makes me want to go back and pick up some random Blue Devil comics, honestly, because that was another one that I remember loving as a kid. I did find myself an issue. I haven't read it yet. I did find myself an issue of Doom. This is the Maria Wolf cover. Holy shit, did this book sell out everywhere really goddamn quick. From what I can see, the only MF Doom lyrics that are in here are on the first page. Like I said, I haven't read it, though. Maybe there's some other references to Doom. But I couldn't resist purely because of that. I went to a few shops and everybody sold out. I was talking to my comic guy today, just kind of bringing this up, going, holy shit, that was a surprise. Hey, he's like, it certainly was. He's like, we sold out of that book so quickly. It just kind of, I think it took a lot of people by surprise how popular this book turned out to be. So bonus for me, I love Maria Wolf's art. I follow her on social media. I love her covers. I might have one or two other covers of books that she's done. As far as I know, she hasn't done interiors for a book. Please correct me if I'm wrong about that. Put in the comments or in the chat if I'm wrong about that, because I would love to see a full book of her art. I think it's gorgeous. I think she colors everything herself too. But it's a hell of a good image. Flipping, I did do a flip through of it. The interior art is pretty damn good. I wish there was a little, I was hoping for maybe a little more of R.I.P. Doom at the back or something like that, or some sort of acknowledgement. It's not in there, but still. As far as I know, it says Doom #1 on here, but as far as I know, this is just a one-shot. I don't think there's another issue of this coming, unless they're going to do a Doom series that this is it's gonna jump off from here. But I'm looking forward to reading that one this week. That one will go in this pile over here, along with that. In case you didn't know, yes, you're still watching the Comic Crack channel. But I also picked up The Boy Wonder issue #1. I was really intrigued by the art. Damien showed it off in one of his videos. I saw some images from the interior online as well. I really actually enjoyed this book more than I thought I might. I got it purely for the art. I was really taken by the art. I love Clayface. It kind of has the feel a little bit of animated series as far as the artwork goes. Maybe not the story. The story is kind of, it is maybe a little bit of an odd match considering what the art is like. It is Damian Wayne. It is pretty hardcore. It's pretty serious in tone, right? Like the things that he's kind of contemplating, his place in the family and not being the favorite son, all of those things, thinking back to, who his mother is and all that. I did really enjoy it, though. I thought it was a pretty fun read. I'm going to give this one another shot. Again, another series. I don't know how many issues there's going to be, but let's give credit here. Written and drawn by Junie Ba, colored by Chris O'Halloran, and lettered by Aditya Bidikar, and then covers by Junie Ba as well too. So there's the credits there for those of you who want to see it. Jeff, thanks for joining us. I bought the first issue of Captain Carrot at a 7-Eleven on Portage and Berry Street. Amazing. That's amazing. And Bubby is saying it is just the one page for the Doom stuff. Okay, good to know. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I'm not a guy who as we all know, is kind of the biggest superhero fan. So this worked for me. I don't know if maybe if you're a big Batman fan or things like that, maybe this doesn't hit the notes that you want. I thought it worked pretty well as far as I was concerned. But again, I'm far from an authority on those kind of things. So I read stuff with boobs in it. So take that as you will. The one that blew me away this week, this was probably... I just don't even know. It was such a goddamn fun book. This is Jasper Jubenville's Dynamite Diva. This collects the first 3 issues that he self-published, plus a bunch of stuff that comes from a couple of anthologies, plus some never-before-seen art, plus some writings by him, plus some pinups, plus. It is chock full of great comics. This is... man, it knocked it out of the park. I loved this book. This is right up there for me. Recently reading that Clamp anthology, I think is what it was called, from New York, those New York artists. I enjoyed this more than that, in obviously a much different way, but just as far as like quality of comics coming from the underground, the modern day underground, this is so goddamn fun. And one of the things I love about this, one of the many things I love about this, is Jasper did this between the ages of 18 and 21 years old. And you get to see that on the page. You get to see kind of the origins and what his style was like from Dynamite Diva #1 all the way to the modern day stuff. And holy shit, I mean, he starts off as an amazing artist and really a really unique, well, maybe not unique, but a very graphic style and a very in-your-face coloring as well too. One of my favorite panels there from this first story. I just love the perspective on that figure, the way his arms are in the front and back and seeing his foot there. He retains all of that throughout. The sense of fun is there in kind of the pages where he talks about his influences. He was influenced by a lot of things that I'm very familiar with myself. Some of that being like Seijun Suzuki movies, exploitation movies in general. Thriller is one of the characters that he sort of modeled, or they call her One Eye. Christina, what the heck was her last name? Anyway, Thriller was the story. Thriller was the movie, rather. They call her One Eye. And that's who he kind of based the Dynamite Diva. One of the characters he based Dynamite Diva off of. Notoriously, she has an eye patch in that movie as well, too. And at the end of that movie, it's a slow motion gun down of all these guys as she goes on her kind of killing spree. Different color palette for every story, and that just gets better as well as it goes on. Lists of characters and backstories of characters, some that you do end up seeing, some that you don't. He does sort of tackle some modern day stuff here, as you can see this. For those Americans, I hope you don't get triggered and re-traumatized. There's even a story in here where he pokes a bit of fun at comics in general. There's an Ed Piskor stand-in, which was kind of nice to see. There's a the Gutter Boys podcast. There's a group called the Gutter Boys in it. So it's kind of a fun story. And he says at the beginning, he's like, listen, this is supposed to take this in the vein of like a Mad Magazine parody. I'm not trying to badmouth people. I'm not trying to be an asshole. This is honestly just meant in fun. I take him at his word for it. His art just grows and grows. He talks about what a huge Dick Tracy fan he was. And I mean, you can see that on these pages if you're familiar with any Chester Gould stuff. What I love about this is when it kind of reaches its height. I mean, you're getting pages like this, which are fucking gorgeous. But then in the panels of some of these stories, the action scenes and the fluidity which he handles kind of these action scenes, and the way the bodies move through the panels, and the kind of the way he breaks down a bit of action is so well done, so expertly done, that this guy is an absolute treat. Another Canadian, I should say. Another shout out to fucking Canada. I pre-ordered his Dynamite Diva #4. You can follow him. I love his lettering too. This is another. There's so many. We could sit here all night and look at panels. I love this panel of the guy in the water there, and that lettering is great. I pre-ordered his Dynamite Diva #4 right from him. You can follow him on social media. You can find him on Instagram. I believe the pre-orders for the next one are closed. I don't think you can pre-order it anymore. He was still working on it when I last checked in, maybe like a week ago. It's delayed as well, but he's saying that he wanted to take his time with it because he wants it to be kind of, the best he's done so far. And I can't wait. I cannot wait to read it. Fantasy Club Books here in town on Corridon Avenue. I went and saw. I bought this from him. Shout out to Austin and Fantasy Club Books. I was talking to Austin previously, and he said he was hopeful. He was trying to get Jasper to come through town and do a little, and they'd have some little event at Fantasy Club. I hope that pans out. Apparently, he's talked to him a number of times and still trying to work out the details and when it might be. Jasper, I think, wants to do a little bit of a tour down into the States to visit some comic shops, which totally makes sense. I don't think he'd have a big turnout here in Winnipeg. I will definitely be there if that does come through. I'd love to see him and maybe get something from him, get him to sign something, or maybe get some original art from him. I don't know what he'll have, but it would be great to even just kind of sit and talk to him for 2 minutes and just see who the hell this guy thinks he is. This is an astounding book. It's Strangers Publishing put this out. It has a price tag of $25 US on it. It came out in 2022. I don't know if this is still in print through Strangers or if it's out of print, but check out Strangers. I don't remember if it's just strangers.com or if it's strangerspublishing.com. Let's have a quick look here. Publishing. Fascinating YouTube videos happening right here. Strangerspublishing.com. Let's have a look together, shall we? Let's share screen here. Strangers Publishing. Here we go. Here they are. Comics. There's Dynamite Diva right there. Let's see what comes up. Yeah, so it looks like it's still available right from Strangers for those of you in the States who might not have a comic shop near you that sells these kind of things. You can order it straight from them. So 207 pages, issue number 1, 2, and 3. And then it gives you all the extras that are in there. If you don't know Strangers Publishing and you haven't kind of dug around their website, again, I'd encourage you to do so. This was one of the best reads of whatever year this came out for me. This Dear Mother and Other Stories by Bhanu Pratap. Such a good goddamn book this was. Little bit kind of Cronenberg, a little bit almost like Francis Bacon with the way he twists the human form and things. Yeah, really, really amazing artist. What else? Crania I have. It didn't really stand out. Oh, another fantastic read by The Lingering Light of a Slowly Dying Sun by Tyler Landry. I loved this book. This was the book. I read it, and as soon as I was done, I went back to the beginning and reread it immediately. Gorgeous art, really great story, very, very engaging. There's a few standouts from them. There's a lot of titles here that I don't know. Hypermud I've talked about before by Max Huffman, another great book. I'm a couple issues behind on that one actually. What else is here that I can show you? point you towards Canker by Matthew Allison. Unfortunately sold out. His art is phenomenal. I've never read any Canker stuff, but another guy that I follow on social media whose art blows me away when I see it is Matthew Allison. Oh, looks like they even carry some Vacuum Decay. For Vacuum Decay, though, I would suggest going straight to Harry Nordlinger. He's got a sale on original art going on currently as well, too, on his Vacuum Decay website. So you can get some pages from him for ridiculously low prices. I'd urge everybody to go and support Harry. Good stuff over there. Yeah, so check out Strangers Publishing. Check out the Strangers fanzine as well, too, if you don't know it. So that was Dynamite Diva. Jasper Jubenville, Canadian. Go Canada. That's all for the stuff that I read. A book that I got probably a month or so ago now. I still haven't read it. I don't think I ever showed it on a video. I finally tucked in and got myself the From Hell collection. This is just the regular, it's just the black and white version. Eddie Campbell, Alan Moore, from Top Shelf. I don't know what year this particular version was put out, but it's everything. I've read a couple of parts of this in Taboo. I've never, ever read the entire thing. It's one of those kind of grail books within comics that I do feel like there's certain books that it's kind of mandatory that you read them. I think like it feels like there's these benchmarks in comics that you do have to give some time to at some point if you're going to be a kind of lifetime comic reader. It's good to kind of go to the classics, that sort of set a tone at a very specific time. So I'm looking forward to digging into that. I had pre-ordered a bunch of stuff through 204 Books. 2 of them came in today unsuspected, or I had 2 of them today when I went to visit. Unexpectedly, I was hoping there was going to be a little more separation, just to give myself a little bit of a break. Thankfully, I get some great discounts there. If you have a pull list there's a discount. There's all sorts of discounts. So it was an amazing deal. And I love that they are able to get this kind of stuff for me. My favorite thing is Monsters Book 2 by Emil Ferris is out. I'm so excited about this one. It's the same format as the first book. It's still that ballpoint pen and ink on lined paper. It feels to me like there's less full color stuff in this one. I'm not going to say that it's rushed, because it absolutely wasn't rushed, because this has been a long time coming. I don't know all the details, but I do think that there was a little bit of back and forth. Maybe lawyers might have been involved. There might have been some issues between Fantagraphics and Emil Ferris that also kind of contributed to the delay of this book. I'm excited about this one, man. Like, look at this page. Her art is beautiful. I really liked book 1. It was one that I kind of hummed and hawed about. And I'm so glad that I had finally picked it up. I think I saw it in a bookstore. Really, really glad that I finally picked it up. If you don't know it, I'm sure you can still find book 1 out there. But this is book number 2. My favorite thing is Monsters, and another beefy tome there to dig into. And finally, man, oh man. Man, oh fucking man. Hellboy Artists Collection. This is the Richard Corbin collection of Hellboy stuff that he did. Beautiful, beautiful put together book, hardcover. Beautiful stuff. I've read the first story in this already. I don't know a ton of Hellboy stuff. I haven't read a ton of Hellboy stuff. There's the list of the stories that are in there. A nice forward. Macoma is the story that I read. The Crooked Man is kind of infamous. The Bride of Hell, Hellboy in Mexico, double feature of Evil, Being Human, House of the Living Dead, and The Mirror. So they've done a fantastic job with this. It's Richard Corbin, man. I figured this is one that I feel like this is one to just jump on. I don't think that this is going to be something that's going to remain in print too long. So happy that they were able to get a copy in for me. So shout out to 204 Comics here in town. Thank you so much for this. This will probably be the first thing that I read this week. Like I said, I've already read that first story, and I'm very, very excited to get into the rest of this. The thing at the end of the book, they have a little bit of ad for other Corben stuff in the Dark Horse library. And they do mention Den Volume 2 and Volume 3. So for some reason, I've missed Den Volume 2 and Volume 3. I didn't know that they were out already. It's a shame that stuff like that isn't kind of, for a guy like me who doesn't check in all the time, it's kind of crazy that those could slip by. You think that there would be a lot more promotion. Maybe it's just because there's not a lot of people buying Richard Corben stuff. I don't really know. I don't understand how this kind of thing works. I just don't have a good handle on how they get word out there for publications. I feel like when it comes to Fantagraphics stuff, I feel like I know more about Fantagraphs. And again, like, I don't go looking for information. I love seeing Colin's previews videos, Loading the Cannon. If you haven't seen, he does some amazing previews videos where he'll go through the magazine and point out stuff that he's interested in or things that other people might be interested in. I don't do that, so I miss out on a lot of stuff. That said, though, I always seem to know what's coming out from Fantagraphics. I might not know exactly what the dates are, but I feel like they do a good job of at least getting their name out there and getting their stuff out there to kind of draw your attention to it. I don't feel the same way about Dark Horse, and I just don't get it. You're doing a Richard Corben fucking library. Like, why wouldn't you have an advertising or a social media person at the helm of that shit to push that shit out there, to make sure that idiots like me who don't read those trades, or who don't read the previews rather, aren't going to miss out on stuff, so I'm going to try to get books 2 and 3, because I do want the whole Corben library that they're going to put out. I do want to support them, but I also do want the books for myself as well too. So in case you didn't know, there you go. I hope Corben made some money when he did his more mainstream work. I can't imagine his Fantagor stuff brought him a lot of money. I mean, his Fantagor stuff, notoriously, I don't know how long you've been watching the channel, but I was talking about a lot of that stuff when I did some Corben videos. And one of the good things about the Fantagor stuff he was publishing is he would do a good write-up in each of the issues about the challenges he was facing. And from what I understand, especially when that was coming out, sales weren't that good from Fantagor. I would hope as well, I'm with you. I would hope that Dark Horse and the Hellboy, Mike Mignola. Yes, Mike Mignola. Drew a blank on his name there for a sec. I would hope that because Mike Mignola was such a big fan of his, as he says in the foreword, I would hope that he got paid really well to do this stuff. Fingers crossed. And then plus the stuff he did for Marvel, I'm sure he made a couple of bucks on that stuff as well too. I also want to get that Corben compilation. Yeah, I mean, I've got 2 of the books, the Murky World and then Den Volume 1, Neverwhere. And again, most of his stuff I've already got, the originals. There's still a bunch that I don't have, but I've got all that Den stuff already. But I still want to get, because I think they've done a really nice job so far of these hardcovers. I like the look of it. It'll be nice to have the whole library of that stuff. That's it. That's all. I guess the final thing, I went and picked up some Albert Camus, some Albert Camus, I guess is probably how you pronounce it. This is The Plague. I've started reading this. I'm a couple of chapters into it, I think. Yeah, about maybe only 30 pages into it. Oh yes, this one is broken up into parts, and they're very long parts. It's about a plague, as the title says. So far, obviously, there's a lot of subtext in it, but I'm enjoying this so far. I'm really digging this. And then they also had The Outsider. Yes. Now, I think this is the one that I had read a comic adaptation of this. I think it called The Stranger maybe instead of The Outsider. But this is Miersalt is different. He will not lie. He will not pretend. He is true to himself. So when his mother dies and he is unmoved, he refuses to do the proper thing and grieve. Returning to Algiers after the funeral, he carries on life as usual until he becomes involved in a violent murder. In court, it is clear that Miersalt's guilt or innocence will not be determined by what he did or did not do. He is on trial for being different, an outsider. This was there and it was cheap, $12. Seemed pretty thin, so I picked this one up too. Just curious to read the book. When I had read that, I think, like I said, I think it was called The Stranger. I think it was probably a library book. There was a bunch of people in the stream that day from the States specifically who said that they had read some Camus stuff in school, and it's not a name that we were told to read in school. It's not a name that I was familiar with. So I don't think it was part of our school agenda, I guess, when it came to reading. So I'm glad to kind of discover this at a later age. But yeah, this has been pretty damn good so far. I'm really digging this book. Curious to see where this goes as they start getting into lockdowns and all sorts of things. So yes. I also wish that Dark Horse was a little quicker with their Mobius library as well. Yeah. And again, the Mobius library, I'm behind on that stuff as well too. I know there's a few books in that library that I'm still missing. And again, I didn't even know that the Mobius library was still going. I couldn't tell you what's coming out next. It just feels like they really shit the bed as far as promotion goes. Of course I could have missed it, but I feel like I follow enough comic book related accounts and publishers that I would see stuff at some point. And again, just using the Fantagraphics example, I see what they're putting out because I see them on social media. I see them retweeting stuff. I see them posting stuff, so I just don't understand why Dark Horse wouldn't have their shit together when it comes to the promotional side of things. Anyway, neither here nor there. Books everywhere, books. Thanks very much, everybody. Nice to see you all. Hopefully we'll be back next week. And if we are, I think we're on Ross's channel for our Sunday chat. And then I'll also be back for another Sunday wrap, depending obviously on how much I read this week. Have a good week, everybody, and we'll talk to you.